All right, commissioners, if you would, let's have a call to order and a roll call. Commissioner Obert.
I'm present, thank you.
Commissioner Morano. Commissioners Chapin. George O'Neill, present. All right, I've only got two so far. We need at least three. Okay, we'll delay our opening until we have more in attendance.
George, I'm pretty sure Diane and Fran are expected to be coming. So, because I've spoken with each of them in the last, or left messages or communicated with them in the last couple of days. So they're probably, I'll tell you what I'll do is I will go get my telephone list. I think I have it here on my other computer and I can make the call.
We're sort of on hold until we have at least one more commissioner. Could be experiencing technical difficulties as well.
George, Diane's here. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yay, okay. I could hear you before, but I had to regroup on my phone here.
All right. So we're only missing Fran at this point. Commissioner Morano.
Want me to give her a call?
Sure. Let's give one more shot, and otherwise we can start.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to silence my speaker for now.
Got it.
While I call her. So I got her voicemail and I left her a message to join us if she could.
All right, we'll start. Hopefully she can join us. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is George O'Neill. I'm the Inland Wetlands Chair, and we've had a roll call. Commissioner Obert, Chapin, and myself are present. Before we get started, I just want to touch on some basic housekeeping items. I'm sure we're all fairly familiar with requirements, but for the sake of good order, today is February 9th, 2021. This is the meeting of the Inland Wetlands Commission. Calling to order at 7:05 p.m. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, this meeting is being held electronically using a teleconferencing application called Zoom. So we are operating under the following procedures. The session is being recorded both for audio and visual content and is under the control of a Zoom host. In this case, we have Amy. To ensure sound quality, the default rule for this meeting is that everyone will remain on mute. Commissioners and staff will generally remain on mute except when speaking or voting, and will generally be keeping video of themselves on throughout the meeting. Applicants and members of the public should feel free to leave their video on or off. However, they may be asked to turn on their video when speaking. If video is not available for you, you will not be precluded from speaking at the appropriate time and may wish to listen to the meeting. During this meeting, everyone is asked to state their name each and every time they speak. Please use the raise your hand feature, which is at the bottom of your screen, to let me and the host of this meeting know that you've raised your hand to speak. Members of the public may only speak during the portion of the agenda established for citizens' comments on agenda items. For individuals representing applicants, permittees, and violators listed in the agenda and their representatives, if you are speaking at this meeting and have a document to submit to the commission, which was not distributed in advance of the meeting with the rest of your materials, please indicate that you wish to submit the document. You will need to hold it up to the camera so that the commission and all members of the public may view it. In addition, you'll be required to email an electronic version of the document in PDF format or take a photograph of it and email it to the Inland Wetlands agent at wetlands@thompsonct.org. Marla will include it in the permanent record of the commission. If a member of the public tries to communicate outside of the citizens' comments on agenda items portion of the meeting, or in any person creates an audio or video disruption, they may be manually ejected by the Zoom host from the meeting upon my request. So we did already call the roll, so I'm going to skip over that and move on to the next item. I would be appointing alternates, but there are none. Action on minutes of the previous meeting. Any changes, amendments?
I didn't see anything that was jumped out at me, so I'd make a motion that we accept them.
I'll second it.
Okay, I reviewed it. I found no modifications required. So motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hearing no opposition, the meeting minutes will stand as recorded. I'm going to now share my screen and we'll look at the agenda items. So if you give me a moment. All right. Charlie, can you see that?
George, yes, it's visible.
Can you see it?
Yes,
Yep.
it is visible.
Okay.
As soon as it came up, that the whole Zoom screen minimized on me, and it took me a while to get it back.
All right. So we talked about the action on previous meetings, and let me scroll past them. A little slow today. We have long minutes. Okay, the next item is citizens' comments on agenda items. Do we have any citizens' comments? If you are trying to call us, don't forget to unmute your mic. All right, hearing none, we're moving on to the next item, which is our applications. The old applications. First item here is WAA 20031, Madison Avenue Investments, LLC, 0 Madison Avenue. Assessors map 103, block 31, lot 6K, subdivision lot 11. Driveway and grading for a new single-family home. Stamped received 8/3/2020, issued 1/19/2021. Legal notice published on 1/29/2021. Appeal period ends 2/13/2021. Ms. Butts, any comment or? You need your mic. You mute there.
You have not received any requests for any appeals when that was issued, it was issued on the condition that no additional filling could occur except for that which was needed to give a proper wearing surface and no increase in the existing footprint. That's
Okay.
it.
Okay, nothing else. Moving on to the next item. WAA 20033, Madison Avenue Investments LLC, 0 Madison Avenue, Assessors Map 103, Block 31, Lot 6R, Subdivision Lot 18. Septic system for new single-family home, stamped received 8/12/2020. On hold pending acceptable language for drainage easement. What do we have on that?
The language of the filed easement, the easement for the stormwater drainage system was filed a year ago in February. And when I looked at it, I was unclear as to whether or not it was acceptable, and it was forwarded to the town's attorney, Rich Roberts, to review. He came up with some modified language, and that language has come back from him, and I will be forwarding that to the applicant to state as soon as that revised language is filed on the land records, then I will issue the wetlands agent approval for it. There were a lot of additions to that language, which made it much clearer as to what the rights and of the town were. If the town has to go in and make any modifications or improvements or maintenance work to the stormwater drainage system or to the stormwater management basin. So I'm glad we did that. We probably should do that in the future. Anytime that we get a drainage easement, they should be advised, and I have suggested to Tira that that language, kind of language about easements being cleared through the attorney's office before it gets filed on the land records, should be part of the new subdivision regulations that they're working on. And she said she was probably going to look at including that in the new subdivision regs so that we wouldn't have this problem in the future.
Okay, commissioners, any comments on this item? Okay, hearing none. We'll move on to the next item. This is your correspondence, right?
Correct.
WAA 20040, Laura Hauser, 31 Center Street, Assessors Map 116, Block 30, Lot 3A. Reconstruction of a single-family home in 100-foot upland review area for Little Pond, stamped received by Town Clerk 9/18/2020 and 10/5/2020 by the Wetlands Office, issued 1/14/2021. Legal notice published 1/22/2021. Appeal period ended 2/6/2021. What do we have on this?
Marla Butts speaking. There was no appeal of this wetlands agent approval, so it is final.
Final. All right. I take it no further action required. It's final. Moving on
Correct.
to the next item is WAA 20043, Gary Rawson, 0 Lodge Road, Assessors Map 141, Block 17, Lot E, construction of a new single-family home in the 100-foot upland review area for aquatic reservoir, stamped received 10/29/2020, issued 2/5/2021. Legal notice to be published 2/5/2021. Appeal period ends on 2/20/2021.
So Marla Butts speaking. So since this was only published last Friday, we wouldn't have had an appeal in any case. But it's right now, it's just waiting for the end of the appeal period.
Okay. I don't hear any commissioner comments. So we'll move on to the next item. WAA 20046, Fred and Josie Rogers, 0 New Road, Assessors Map 154, Block 3, Lot 2C. Construction of a septic system in the upland review area for a new single-family home. Stamped received on 11/12/2020, on hold pending receipt of NDDH approval of septic design. Do we receive our septic?
Marla Butt speaking. This should have been on the December and January agendas and was not. Somehow the file got misplaced. So it is an old application and it is on hold pending NDDH's approval.
Okay. Commissioners,
It's
any
one of
comment?
those lots that was originally in the Strategic Commercial Realty gravel mining operation.
Right.
That has since been completed. The gravel mining was completed and the lots were sold off. This was one of those lots.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Moving on to the next item. WAA 20047, Town of Thompson, Riverside Drive from Route 200 to Rawson Avenue, maps 61, 63, and 174. Reconstruction of sidewalks in DOT right-of-way, received 12/21/2020, issued 1/25/2021. Legal notice to be published on 2/5/2021. Appeal period ends 2/20/2021. Any further action required?
Marla Butt speaking. As you recall, when the discussion came up about the drainage near Thatcher Road, I had a direct communication with the district DOT District 2 drainage engineer, Norm Miller, and told him of the situation. He said he would look into it, and then I drafted a letter for Amy's signature to confirm that they would conduct an investigation of the drainage system near Thatcher Road. And then the notice was published last Friday. It's the same as Gary Rawson's, and so it's still got some time before there's any potential for appeal.
Okay. We have received.
I
anything
don't
else?
have confirmation whether or not Amy sent the letter or not.
Yes, the letter was sent.
Thank you, Amy. All right. That's a bonus. We have our executive handy here. Moving on to the next item. IWA 21002, Lisa M. Audette, 0 Robbins Road, map 87, block 53, lot 8A-1. Grading and construction of stone ford across an intermittent watercourse. Wetland to develop an access for pedestrian and tractor use associated with the construction of a proposed new daycare facility received by the town clerk on 1/8/21, statutorily received on 1/12/2021.
George, Janet Blanchett is here to discuss the application, but I wanted to let you know that if you go to the next page down, page 18 is the site plan. And then page 19 shows an aerial photograph from 2016 that was taken off of Map Geo, so you could get a sense of what the land looked like. And then page 20 shows that same view with the 2-foot LiDAR topography in there. So that you
Okay.
get a sense of where the crossing is in relation to the open lands. And at this juncture, I would turn that over to Janet to talk about the application.
So the chair recognizes Janet Blanchett. If you would, Ms. Blanchett, state your role and credentials for the record.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Janet Blanchett, professional engineer with J&D Civil Engineers. I believe if you could take it back a couple pages, maybe it was sheet 18 with the site plan, I can describe the project for the commissioners. So most of you are probably familiar with this site since it's on the corner of a state road. It just looked like a vacant lot at the corner of Route 193 and Robbins Road. But back in 2009, a septic system and a well was actually constructed on this property. And then it was recently sold to Lisa Audette, who would like to make a daycare center on the property. And she would like the children to be able to have outdoor education and to be able to access the field that's on the west of the intermittent water course. which would be like in the left-hand side, the clearing area. There's a note that says meadow with fruit trees for outdoor education.
Right here.
Exactly. So the building is, high and dry outside of the upland review area, but in order to access the field, it's necessary to cross the intermittent water course. I went in and looked at that water course, and essentially there's a large DOT drainage pipe that crosses Route 193, but it just outlets onto like a flat grassy plain, and the runoff kind of runs. Yeah, exactly. Just runs off. There's no defined banks of this water course. I had taken a couple photos and shared them with Marla. So in order just to get children and like their tractor to mow the grass across, I felt like the least disturbing alternate would be just allow them to cross kind of like the stream at grade. It's called a ford, or just an at grade crossing. There won't be a bridge, there won't be a culvert. The design is to cover the ground with a geotextile and then put 6 inches of clean crushed stone on top of it. So any runoff that comes out of the culvert will just run through the crushed stone. But when the children go over to the field, they'll have a firm footing that they can walk on. When I was out at this site, like probably 6 weeks ago, it was a very wet time of year, like it is, and I could walk right across it. There's no standing water. It's just kind of a sandy little floodplain with some sand off the state highway, but you can walk right through it. So I called Marla and kind of discussed this option, whether she thought it would be, well, I'll let her, she can speak for herself, but we discussed it and how it should be handled. And I feel like this daycare and having the children access that backfield will be a great thing for the community. So I hope that the commission will look favorably upon it and approve the application.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions for Ms. Blanchette?
Can you hear me?
George, if Marla Beth speaking. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, this is Charlie
Commissioner
Obert. I looked at that site the other day as I drove by, and it seems to me that it doesn't show on that drawing, but it's kind of sandwiched in between Robbins Road and I-395. And just past the end of the drawing on the left-hand side, it gets pretty steep. So as far as I can see, there doesn't seem to be any issues for erosion or runoff that we need to be concerned about. But again, I took a look at it, and I think that it's okay.
Sounds like a very creative way of utilizing the available space and putting everything to good use. Plus, gives children an opportunity to become more informed of the land. Excellent. Well, Dan, any comments or?
George, Marla Beth speaking, if I can make a comment.
Of course.
You'll notice on the drawing, it shows a 1 to 3 foot wide crushed stone swale on the south side of the driveway or the access way. And I asked Janet to include that, to pitch the driveway towards one side or the other so that the runoff from that slope could go down on one side of it. And so the only thing that has to be watched during construction is until those slopes are stabilized, to make sure that the runoff from that swale it isn't carrying a lot of turbidity. So there may need to be some additional erosion and sediment controls, but it'll be during construction. It'll be dependent upon when the construction actually occurs. if it occurs at the right time of the year and the slopes can get stabilized fairly quickly, there won't be any need for any additional erosion and sediment controls at that location, at the terminus of that swale where it enters into the wetland system that has the intermittent water course. But that's the only concern that I have on this. And that's going to depend upon the actual timing of construction as to what controls will need to be in place.
Okay. Thank you. So the action required at this time would be to approve this?
You can approve the application at this time. Marla Butt speaking.
Right. Based on our conversation, it doesn't sound as if there's any reservations, or do you want to make recommending a modification?
No, I do not. Marla Butt speaking.
Thank you.
This is Charlie Obert. I make a motion that we approve, and I don't see the number of it, IWA.
Oh, sorry. I've got it right here. Yeah, it's it's IWA 21002.
To make the crossing in the upland review area as specified in the drawing.
Okay, the motion's been made. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Commissioner Morano?
Commissioner Morano's made and second. Any discussion? Commissioner O'Neill, sounds as if we've covered it pretty well, and the presentation by the representative of the owner is very thorough. So let's put it to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing no opposition, the application is approved.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, moving on to the next item here. Where was I? And no new applications. Let's see what I have to do. The next item is the applications received after agenda was published. And this is WAA 21003, Gary Rawson, 3 and 4 Loggy Road, Assessors Map 141, Block 17, lots 184 AAB and 184 AAC. Remove stumps, level soil, and plant grass. Stamp received on 2/8/2021, under review.
Marla Butt speaking. On page 23, you will see the application drawing that I received with the application. And if you scroll down to page 25, you will, I've basically put on the map geo 2016 aerial photography. I've outlined the proposed grubbing and grading and reseeding area. This is an area that I had told them that Mr. Rawson, that the land, by the way, first of all, it's actually on 2 properties. There's a little piece that's on Gary Rawson's property that's on the left-hand side of the pink area that's highlighted on the aerial photography. And then on the right-hand side, the majority of it is on his brother's property, and his brother has signed the application form as a property owner. I've only just received this application yesterday, so I'm in the process of reviewing it. It is all upland. And I had told Mr. Rawson that as long as he didn't do any clear cutting, he could cut trees. So I'm believing that some of the trees have already been cut, and that I told him that he couldn't do any stumping work anything to remove the stumps or regrade anything at all to smooth it off after the stumps were taken out of the ground until he got an approval. And so that's why he submitted this application to do that. But I need to take a look at it and see if there's anything additional that I need to have in the application. It appears as though it is a hit for the natural diversity database area, similar to that which was in the application previously referenced for his mother's house. If you go up to page 23, You will see the house that was referenced earlier in tonight's meeting, that's got an approval that shows on the application drawing. So he got a natural diversity database review of that house and they had no problem with it. So I'm suspecting that if he submits the same request to the natural diversity database staff, that he'll get the same answer for this grubbing and grading and seeding. So it's under review and there's no action required by the commission at this time. Unless you have some questions.
I have no commissioners. Any questions?
Negative.
Commissioner Obert? Okay, no questions. Moving on to the next item. Let me just advance my agenda here. Okay, permit extensions and changes. IWA 20022, Mark Bear, 1227 Thompson Road, Assessors Map 116, Block 24, Lot 10. Construct house, well, septic system, driveway, and associated grading. Request to authorize additional modifications to approved plans as shown on plans entitled, quote, Site Development Plan prepared for Mark Bear, 1227 Thompson Road, Thompson, Connecticut, end of quote. Prepared by J&D Civil Engineers, LLC, sheet 1 of 2, dated June 15th, 2020, revised 2021-0113. Move house received via email by the Wetlands Office, 1/14/2021. I see we have,
Carla Butt speaking.
yes, Marla.
We have Daniel Blanchette is at the meeting to explain it, but if you go to page 28, that is the correspondence, the email that I initially received from Daniel Blanchette describing what the changes were. And I'll let him explain that to you. And then subsequent to that, after looking at that, I realized that it had to come through as a plan revision because it's a change in the construction in the upland review area. So yesterday, he sent me a request to have it. Was it yesterday? It was, yeah, yesterday, to put it on the agenda. So on page 29, you have the
Perk test?
proposed modification. And on page 30 is what is currently approved. So if you go back and forth between the two pages, you can see how the driveway's changed a little bit, the location of the house has changed a little bit. And Daniel, if you could explain all the different little changes that were in between the two plans.
Okay, the chair recognizes Mr. Blanchette. If, for the record, if you could introduce yourself and help inform the commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Daniel Blanchette. I work with J&D Civil Engineers. I'm a licensed professional engineer, and I'm here to represent the owner of this property, Dr. Mark Bear. So just to walk everyone through the change that was made, if you recall, this is a very steep site. A lot of the site is already at a 2-to-1 slope. And so my original design maintained that slope from the road down to the house, basically a 2-to-1 slope to the first floor. And then obviously to dig out the basement temporarily, you would have to construct a steeper slope closer to 1-to-1 to be able to build that and make it work. And so we had assumed that that would work. As the contractor was doing the excavation, he realized he could not maintain that slope and keep it stable. If you see on the house, I called for a walkout elevation of 165. And once the contractor got down to about 170, the slope started to cave in and he realized that he wasn't going to be able to build this house effectively or without some really over the top temporary measures. And so what we did is we ended up raising the house and we shifted it to the south 25 feet, where the property is a bit wider. So that way, at least temporarily.
Excuse me, Daniel.
Yes.
Daniel, Marla Budd speaking. George, could you go to page 29? 29,
I'm
you're
on
on
it.
page 30.
I'm on 29.
Okay, and 29 is what the proposal is now for the
Right.
revision.
Right. The first one, the original was 30, which we are looking at, is 30, and the 29
Correct.
is as proposed.
I apologize, Daniel, for interrupting you, but I thought it'd be better if you were discussing it to discuss what's being proposed.
Thank you, Marla. I appreciate it. So now this is the proposed change that we're seeking your approval for this evening. As you can see, the house, the walkout was raised by 3 feet from 165 to 168. You can also see that it was shifted to the south 25 feet. And that's just so that on a temporary basis, the contractor could achieve that very steep slope while he pours the foundation before he fills it in. Now this survey that I'm showing actually represents the updated topography. If you look at, if you could move the cursor a bit to the 170, 174 contour, yeah, right there. So you can see 170. That's kind of, if you look at the existing contours, that was that big flat area that he had built. And so now you can see that the house is shifted to the right or to the south, away from that flat area that was built, again, so that he could temporarily do the excavation to make the foundation work. But overall, I think this change worked really well for the site. The house is on average a few inches further away from the shore. And at this point, all the shoreline work has been completed. I think it came out very well. We were also able to reduce the length of the driveway, which reduces the impervious area by 875 square feet, which is obviously good. As a result of moving the house, we also had to move the driveway turnaround to the street side instead of to the shore side, just where you would back out of the garage, so to speak. So we moved that to the other side. The other big change we had to do, again, with the house, we had to move the tanks by an equivalent amount. But because this is a pumped septic system, the elevations of the tank are somewhat arbitrary. So we were able to raise them as well by 3 feet to make that work. So that's really kind of summary of the changes. Everything else is substantially similar. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Blanchette. Commissioners, do we have any questions for Mr. Blanchette?
I think I'll raise my question. This is Charlie Obert. Raise my question first to Marla. You've had a chance to look at these, and it's been a while since I've been out there. So are you satisfied with how this is shaping up now?
Yeah, I haven't been out to the site in at least a month and a half. So, but I can say that it looks like this would be a better approach. I did notice that one of the retaining walls that's near the galleries has also moved, so that there's originally in the original design there was a set of galleries for the yard drains from the site, from the driveway, and then galleries for the house runoff itself. And now under the new proposal, the galleries are all together, and the retaining wall that was there has been moved towards the driveway more. And the galleries are on the far side of that retaining wall. And it doesn't have any effect on the erosion and sediment control, really. It's basically the same as what was there before. It's just positioned a little differently. So I don't have a problem with the revised design.
Okay. Any other comments by commissioners? I do have a question for you, Marla. Would you say that the modifications that have been are being proposed actually probably improve the configuration and perhaps certainly don't do any harm to the inland wetlands?
That would be correct. And it addresses a concern about the stability of the embankment along Thompson Road.
Okay. That's my only question. So at this point, we need, unless there's other questions, should we try to, we're going to need to approve this?
You'll need a motion to approve the
Right,
modification.
course. So do I have a motion to approve the modification?
This is Charlie Obert. I'll make the motion that we approve the modifications as outlined.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Commissioner Morano, I second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, no further discussion. Let's have a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, the motion has been approved, and the application, I should say the vote is in favor, and the application is approved as submitted.
Marla Butt speaking. I will bring you over a draft for the transfer, not the transfer, the modification approval, George,
All right, thank
in
you.
the next week or so.
That's great, and wish our Mr. Bear good luck with the construction here. Looks like.
All right, thank you for your time.
You're welcome. All right, moving on to the next item, violations and pending enforcement actions. Let's see.
George, if
Am I out
I
of
can make it
sequence
a little
here?
shorter.
Is this a
No, you're
sequence?
not. But there's been no change in any of the violations, the three that are there. I haven't taken any action on anything. Now with the snow on the ground, I'm not going to be able to do a whole lot anyways.
Okay, so let's.
So I would say for all three violations, there's no change in the status.
Okay, no change, so we can move over the open items, and obviously all the items have been distributed in advance, so everyone's had an opportunity to review them. Okay.
One thing I forgot to tell you, there was a request for a transfer, and that was on. You would need to amend the agenda to include that. That was on page 31 of the Zoom documents. I'm sorry, I spoke out of turn.
Let's go back to 31. All right, here's the agenda. Permit transfers, right? So we have to amend this?
Yes, it was not on the original agenda. So you would need to have a vote to amend the agenda to include this item on the agenda.
All right,
I'll make a motion to amend the agenda to include discussion of WAA 20045.
do you have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I put it to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing no opposition, the agenda is amended to reflect the change. So now we have the permit transfer. Anything further? So we want to read this out.
Marla
then,
Butt speaking. This is a standard. Yes. Okay.
All right, so this is permit transfer WAA 20045 to George and Karen Mariner for from James Fogarty. Approval WAA 20045 issued 12/3/2020 for construction of a driveway in the 100-foot upland review area for a new single-family home at 0 Brickyard Road, Assessor's Map 38, Block 87, Lot 6. All right, so that's the permit transfer. I take it this document is the formal request?
That is correct. And the next page down, page 33, is the original approval. And the next page down on page 34, is the site plan, which shows what it was that was authorized. Because there's been no initiation of construction, I have no problem with transferring the permit. This application originally came in with the prospective buyer, and now the land has transferred, and I have spoken to Mr. Marrier. They're not anticipating the start of construction for at least a couple of months. They're currently living in Woodstock temporarily until they can build their home here. So I have no objection to the transfer of the permit from of the wetlands agent approval from Mr. Fogarty to Mr. Marrier, Mr. and Mrs. Marrier.
Do we need to have a motion to approve it, or is it just because it's a wetlands
Yes,
agent?
yes, you do. It is a final, it's a final wetlands agent approval that was not appealed. So in order to change it now, would need the commission's approval to transfer it.
Okay, so do I have a motion to approve it?
I'll make that motion.
And do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, the motion is made and seconded to approve the permit transfer. Any further discussion? I do have an observation. It seems that there's quite a lot of wetlands in this area, but or maybe that, yeah, there is.
I recall that's the reason that the lot was set up. It seems like a long,
Yeah.
I don't see the driveway specific. Yes, I do. A long way for the driveway to go because they had to get around the wetlands. Yeah, I had to go all the way over to Brickyard.
Right, it looks like a 1,000-foot driveway. Well, that's what they make snowplows for, I guess.
That's what they made them for. And it looked like they picked the route that would have the least impact on the wetlands.
Yeah, a lot of folks probably would try to just go right across, right? Okay, I was just curious. I just want to be clear that it did look like it did a lot of work, took a lot of effort to bypass the wetland impact, so that's a good thing. All right, any further questions? Okay, hearing none, put it to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those
Aye.
opposed? No opposition. The permit transfer is approved. Okay, moving on to the next item. I guess we've already skipped over violations of pending enforcement actions, correct? Yes,
Correct. Marla Butt speaking.
thank you. So we go down to other business. Okay, FY 21 and 22 budget request. So this was distributed during the last meeting, and updates were forwarded to the commissioners since the last meeting. Any discussion or observations or questions?
Marla Butt speaking.
Yes.
Marla Butt speaking. If you go to page 41, you had asked to find out what had been happening in the past.
Right.
And so I went through the past budgets and the reports on those budgets so that you'd get a sense of how the monies were used when they were budgeted and how much they were. So if you go to page 41, you'll see fiscal year 17-18, 18-19, 19-20, 20-21. And what I tried to do was highlight for you those things that were salaries that are fairly standardized. Then there are constant commitments. Those are the professional affiliations in the Eastern Connecticut Soil Water Conservation District. But the areas that are variable are in yellow. And so you can get a sense of how much things got worked. What I will advise you on right now is that the advertising costs are going up. What used to cost about $24 for a single legal notice on a single application is now in the neighborhood of $44. So the advertising costs are going up. You'll notice in fiscal year 1920, over 100% of it was used, and it was $600. In 1819, 113, almost 114% was used. And in fiscal year 1718, 122%, but then the price was a little less. So you might want to consider shifting some monies to legal notices. Professional services has been held in case you needed to have a soil scientist that you needed to hire. So you needed to have some monies there for that. There have been very few meetings or fees, and there's very little travel at this point in time. So you could potentially, what little monies there are there, you could shift some of that to the advertising. One thing I do want to make you aware of is that the commission needs to think about, in a couple of years' time, when I hit 70, I want the commission to be thinking about how you could replace me. And one of the things George and I kind of have talked about is that you could hire somebody who would be more of a novice and would probably make less per hour, but then I could be available on an as-needed basis, on an hourly rate, to provide education or information. And so that's not for this coming year, but for the following year. Need to be thinking about that. At this juncture, I don't see any changes in the salary or the recording secretary, because typically those prices are increased based upon whatever the non-union employees get for increases. They give that to myself and to the recording secretary. So those are fairly standardized.
This is Charlie
So
Obert.
what is your pleasure? Because I
have a question regarding our application costs. Should we look to raise those costs to cover the advertising? When was the last time we raised the cost of?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt, Charlie, but those monies do not go into the account for advertising. They go back to the general fund. So you have to have your advertising costs in your budget.
Okay.
And to increase the cost of the application, we talked about this a couple of months ago. We have to increase, we have to modify the regulations to increase those costs. And that's one of the next things that I'll be working on, is to try to come up with a better fee structure that covers the cost. Because right now, if it's $40 for a legal notice and $60 goes to the state as part of its fee, that leaves $10 left over that pays for my processing. And that's really not enough. So yeah, we are looking at an increase in the application fees because of the increase in costs. But you need to shift it here in the advertising if you really want to do that.
But do we need to actually have a motion on that, or we have flexibility? As you said, it's in the yellow. Some of those
Yeah,
other fees
well,
we could.
Yeah, the other thing I want you to be aware of is that at the end of the fiscal year, if there's not enough money, say like in advertising, but we haven't used enough in office supplies, the finance office will take the monies from the office supplies to pay for the advertising, as long as the bottom line, the end amount that was budgeted originally, is not exceeded. So, for example, if you look at fiscal year 1920, there was $25,000 plus almost $26,000 budgeted, and there was 24.5 that was expended. So there was still some money left on the table. And it looks like most of that would have been in meetings and professional services, meetings fees and professional services, nothing was used there. And not much was used for travel. So the only reason why I suggest moving it to advertising, because if there's cost cutting that's going to go on, they will look to see what you haven't spent money on in past years. And even though you've been using it to pay for advertising, it's been allocated for things that you haven't used it for. So you may want to reduce the amount in travel or in meetings and fees and add it to the advertising, since you're constantly year after year going over the costs, exceeding the costs.
It appears, though, if I could add, that the office expenses are non-existent for the current period. Is that because we're just using
I tip,
PDFs and Zoom,
yeah.
or printing $200?
Well, typically office supplies, I try to hold off till close to the end of the fiscal year and then use them then, because sometimes there's a large item. For example, last fiscal year, we encumbered some of the monies from office supplies to buy a cabinet, a storage cabinet,
Yeah.
for the office. And we may or may not have enough monies to buy that using the monies we encumbered last fiscal year. So we might want to use some of this fiscal year's to do it. Or say you needed a camera, or say you needed some piece of equipment like a drone, which might be construed as office supplies. You would want to be able to have the monies there to encumber it. So even
Right.
though you're not using the office supplies much, I mean, I get my paper from the general storage, the inks for the toners for the printers that I have, the 2 printers in the office, they come from the selectman's office. A lot of pens, pencils, staplers, that kind of thing comes out of office supplies. File folders comes out of office supplies. Labels comes out of office supplies. But for one of the things that I might want to be charging on office supplies is there's a in the application, when I issue a permit, I put cards. There's 2 cards that go in with the permit. One is a card that's a notification of when construction is supposed to start, and then there's another card that they can mail back in. These are like postcards that they mail back in to say that they've completed their work, so that I know if I wanted to be able to go take a look at it, I would know that it was done. In the past, I have tried to purchase blank cards and print them on the printers that we have, but I cannot find the right color cardstock or the right size. So I'm thinking I'm going to have to go to Chase Graphics and have them do it. And there's going to be a cost in that, and that'll come out of office supplies. So things like that, that you don't always expect, you're not sure what you're going to have,
Yeah.
that come out of that.
Okay. That's pretty thorough. Opportunity to discuss. So basically, we have to take a hard look at the advertising, and it seems like from a 6-month standpoint, a lot of items expenses haven't been incurred. The biggest expense, of course, is salary. Sorry, was
If I were you, I would probably consider knocking travel down to 25, just so you have a placeholder, and move that to advertising, the 25 more to advertising. And I'd move the meetings and fees down to 25 and move $75 to advertising, so that you have $700 in advertising total.
Yeah.
Because you appear to be going over just over 600 every time. I mean, you look at it, it's fiscal year 17-18 was 673. The next fiscal year was 684. The next fiscal year was 603. So I would suggest moving some of those monies and just having placeholders for those into the advertising.
Okay. Commissioners, additional questions for Marla on this issue?
Now, that seems like a good idea, but if we're soon going to have to submit our budget. And I think that all needs to be a cover letter that will make it clear to the Board of Finance and to the Board of Selectmen that we're doing our best to keep our costs down, but we don't want to be completely cut out on travel and meetings, because sooner or later we're going to be coming back to them.
True. I don't know if it's gonna be this year, though.
No, probably not, or at least not early this year.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good point. Commissioner Morano or Commissioner Champion, any observations or comments?
Those seems like good suggestions. I just know over the years, there's usually an ebb and flow in budgets, and this last year has certainly been dramatic with what else is going on. But to modify it and leave a little leeway would be appropriate.
Okay. I agree. So on the budget process, I know there's a meeting we'll have tomorrow afternoon, I believe, and discuss it. Do we require a vote on this proposed budget? Can't recall if we did it last year.
I think last year you did have a vote, but you weren't changing anything. And this year, if you're gonna move some monies to advertising from travel and meetings, then I think that you probably need to identify the amount that you want to move and so that you have totals, so that if you go to page 40 on the Zoom documents.
Right.
And under the second column from the right, the proposed.
Right.
Department proposed. Actually, it's the fourth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from the right. Then I would change, if you're agreeable to it, I would change travel to 25, which would be a 50% decrease. It just gets dollar decrease, so that would be $25 decrease. And same thing with meetings, change that down to $25, and then it would be $75 decrease there. And then there would be in advertising $100, $700 for the proposed budget, and it would be an increase of $100.
Wait a minute. Okay, professional services?
No, I don't change those only because you still could have the need for a soil scientist, to hire one to do, because I'm not a soil scientist, and that's what those were there for.
Okay,
I
so
mean, if you
advertising.
don't have those, then if you do
Okay, we gained some here, right?
75 from meetings.
Yep.
Yeah, I would take 75 from meetings and give it to advertising. That would give you $100 more in
Plus I did.
advertising.
Okay, so we just modify it, so it comes in, that's where you get 75, so it's 675.
Yeah,
I can't, this is I don't have a pencil, I've just got my mouse. So, okay, got that.
But I think, George, excuse me, I think that if we're taking $25 from the travel and $75 from meetings, that increases our advertising to $700.
Oh, I thought it was 75.
correct.
Oh,
Mm-mm.
700.
So, yeah, the
Yeah.
25 that you have there is what we're
700.
proposing for our budget for next
Going
year
backwards.
for meetings. But there you go. So that
Okay,
means
I got it, yeah.
we have that.
Got it.
I have one more question. As the cost of advertising is going up, is that necessary for us to advertise each thing through the Shopper's Guide and Villager, or can we just use the town's website and not have to pay that much?
The answer to your question is no. You have to publish it in a newspaper having general circulation, and the cheapest one is the Stonebridge Press, the Thompson Villager. We don't advertise legal notice in the Shopper's Guide. The town
you.
may do other advertising, but for legal notices, they have to be in a newspaper of general circulation.
And where does that stipulation come from, Marla? This Diane? Is that something that
The-
in
the
town
statute.
ordinances or? Because it seems like we're moving
State
into an age
statute.
where,
It's in the
okay,
Inland
it should be
Wetlands Act.
digital at this point, it seems like.
Sorry, I didn't quite hear your
Well, until
comment.
they change,
Gotcha.
say again?
No, I think I'm on board. I was just saying, it seems like, that's sort of Stone Age to be publishing in a newspaper at this point.
Now, that's what I was thinking, but it seems like it's statutory requirement.
Well, the great news is that that's all online. So that Stonebridge Press Villager is online. So they're charging you hard print cost for the print, the printing of it when it's actually, I wonder if we can have an option, say only print it on the digital version if you give us a discount. Like books, right? You can buy
I
books.
don't think
you
so.
can buy
I
the
just got into
ebook.
I got into a discussion with them about what they were charging us because I noticed that the prices had gone up quite a bit. So I
Yeah.
started I know that for every inch that's published in the newspaper, it's $7.35. And each column that has legal notices is 2 columns wide. And then they count how many inches, and those are even partial inches. So I had a legal advertisement that came out recently. I thought it was 2 inches by 2 columns, and that should have been, I think it was $28.40. And they were charging me 3 inches by 2 columns. And what I was told was that the legal notice was just a fraction of an inch over 2 inches. So they were charging me for 3 inches, 2 columns wide. And that's why it was closer to $40. So their costs went up last year. And I also found that they sometimes overcharged me. So I am now measuring, if I don't think the legal notice the price looks right, I'm actually measuring it myself and sending them an email questioning their charges. Because they send me the tear sheet, which is the actual newspaper with a projected bill for it. And that's when I have to take a look at it and say, okay, have you charged me right? And I've already found one time when it was overcharged. So I'm keeping an eye on that more now.
But I think the issue is, essence of the discussion is that in the fullness of time, I think we'll see it all digital and the price should be a lot cheaper. I mean, if you get Kindles and I do get books, I do buy books, but I also get the Kindle version, but I get the Kindle version for like 20% of the cost or something. Until there's more competition, I think is what the issue is. If you have one vendor that provides us the record, then you're sort of have a limited number of folks that are competing. But anyway, that's not something we're going to change.
Well, it could be published in the Norwich Bulletin, but the Norwich Bulletin is a lot more expensive than Stonebridge Press. So
Oh yeah, I think all of them should
both of
go
them have
digital.
generals.
Yeah, you should pay more for the digital. You may pay more for the print and less, if anything, for the digital. But that's another discussion. I mean, you're right. All right. So we've agreed that we're going to make shift some of the funds as somewhat illustrated on the markup here. Any other concerns? Can we lobby for more money, or is that sort of hard to determine given our current environment?
I can't advise you on that. I mean, I haven't been dissatisfied at this juncture, but I do see down the road that there's going to be a problem when you have somebody who doesn't have the extent of experience that I have. They're going to need more time. There's going to need to be more hours than 15 hours typically something in the neighborhood of 20 hours a week. And given the price that you're getting me at, if you look on page, where is it? Page 39, you can see what my hourly rate is. Just under $25, which is less than half of what I used to make as an hourly rate. So, and at this juncture, the recording secretary is probably one of the higher paid ones that the town has. And I'm very satisfied with Ashley's work. So, and I haven't heard any problems. You know, the fact that she can't come into the office to do any of the filing, that kind of thing, I'm picking up that. So that's been a little bit more stressful, but I don't see any changes in the salaries at this juncture, not this year, not this coming fiscal year, maybe perhaps. Oh, you're giving me a raise, George?
Oh, goodness. Oh, that's $700 an hour. Yeah, sorry. I had to delete my edits. Oh, well, sorry about that. Let's get it.
That's okay.
I think you should get more, but you
So,
know, there's constraints here too, so it's sort of a catch-22 for us.
well, I think the argument's going to have to be made down the road that, you know, when you have to look for somebody to, you know, to replace me down the road, you're going to have to look at more hours. There's just no way you're going to be able to get around it very well. In some towns, they've combined the zoning enforcement officer with the wetlands agent, and zoning enforcement officer, 20 hours typically is not enough for them either. So, because they have a lot more things to do. I don't know what the answer is down the road, but you need to think about it. But for this year, I think the adjustments that you've made probably are appropriate.
Good. All right, then, any other discussion on the budget, or I guess we'll have to make a motion to move forward based on those changes, which I've already erased, but I think we get the gist of it. Essentially shifting travel and meetings down to advertising, giving a increase of $100.
If we need a motion, I'll make it.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call a vote. All those in favor with the proposed shifting of costs from, as discussed, say aye.
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 All those opposed? There is no opposition, so the proposals, the recommendation to the Finance Committee for the changes have been approved or carry. All right, moving on to the next item. We have discussion on review of Thompson Wetland inventory.
Marla Budd speaking. If you go to page 43, in the draft plan of conservation and development, Carolyn Wurge has added the letters to the 10 significant wetlands that were referenced in the 1980 report developing significant wetlands. So you can see where they are. And they're in a red hatch. And then the wetland soils as defined by the General Soil Survey are in green. And that's overlain on top of the parcel map. This is all done in GIS. So you can get a sense of what the systems are that carry the wetlands, that have the wetlands connected or not connected. But if you scroll down to the next page, 44, and you look at what the Natural Diversity Database has for hits of species of concern or endangered species, and then also areas of critical habitat, it may be that the inventory needs to be updated, needs to be looked at again. Because if you scroll between the two, you'll notice that there's some areas that maybe should have been considered as significant and weren't when you look at the natural diversity database. And so I'm thinking that it might be of value. The original study was done by the Northeast Regional Council of Governments, no, the Northeast Connecticut Regional Planning Agency, and that was done in 1980, the original study. So I don't know who yet would be the entity that could do that. But if that were to be done, that would have to be a contractual agreement, and that would cost additional monies. Again, that would not be something that would be in the current fiscal year, but would have to be planned out, have to get an idea of who could do that, whether or not it could be done by the University of Connecticut. They have the engineering school. They also have the natural resource conservation, or maybe somebody from Yale could do something like it, but that would have to be investigated. And I just kind of wanted to get your input as to whether or not you think that would be worthwhile to pursue. Having another inventory done to see if there should be changes in the 10 significant wetlands.
So you're thinking, excuse me, Charlie, over
I
here.
see,
You're thinking we're gonna possibly add some areas, like the one over Aquatic Road and Aquatic Farmtown Road?
I think there's some
I'm
other area
looking at,
that could be looked
sorry,
at.
go ahead.
I'm sorry. The Woodward property, the wetland area up there looks pretty, it doesn't even seem to be acknowledged. And that would be interesting to find out if that is qualified.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yes, I think
In
we should
addition to that-
I think we should start to plan for this and reach out to both UConn and Yale and see if they have a grad student that wants to do some work.
They usually do it for
Marla-
free, or do we have to pay them?
No, you probably have to pay them.
Well, UConn does work out of their engineering department, and we don't have to pay them for it.
Yeah, but you would be looking for a different skill set than an engineer.
Oh, you're right.
So I'd have to do a little investigation on that. So if you want me to pursue this, I'll try to make some contacts. I'll contact the Eastern Connecticut Conservation District, maybe talk to Judy Rondo, see if she has any ideas or anybody in her office as to how this might be accomplished. I know that the Eastern Connecticut Conservation District has been working with the Yale School of Forestry on certain things because they have their forest, Yale Forest over there in Union. So there might be something, some connections that could be made, and I'd be willing to pursue that if you think it's of value. I mean, there's some systems here that appear to be quite large and that they're not listed as being significant, and I just don't understand why. So, and I think Jerry Swamp should have been more inclusive than what it was. Particularly on the north side of the rail track, the trackway, the old rail, the trolley track. But
What impact would this have, Marla, on the landowners and the town if we increase the number of significant wetlands?
what it does is it increases the area of jurisdiction that the commission has. So the significant wetlands currently in the regulations say that it has a 200-foot upland review area, not a 100-foot upland review area. So what you're looking at is critical habitats that you want to have a little closer look at what's going on around them than just having simply 100 feet. Now remember, the wetland soils that you're seeing on that map, they're not precisely located. So there are, you need a soil scientist to actually do the delineations. These are general locations of wetland soils, and you can start to see corridors. And is there a need to have a connection for corridors? I mean, one of the things that's been problematic in habitat is habitat fragmentation, where you create isolated populations that cannot connect with one another anymore because they've got obstructions in the way. They've got a highway, or they've got a culvert, or they've got a road crossing. Those kinds of things create barriers for the transfer. There's a lot of land up in Bull Hill, which is now protected, but wasn't protected originally by the Wyndham Land Trust. And there are some significant areas up in there. If the Wyndham Land Trust ever loses that property, for whatever reason, if it were to happen, then there would be no extra protections for them. And the beavers have come in and made a lot of changes to habitat. That's what happened to the Woodwards property up off of Wilsonville Road. And that may have increased the value and importance of that system. And if that's the case, then maybe you want to have a greater upland review area. And maybe there's other components that you want to put into evaluating so that you have more information about how these systems function. And it would make it easier for you to render decisions, potentially. Anyways, let me know if you want me to pursue that, because I'll put some feelers out before I spend any time.
I say yes, let's
I
start
wanna know.
looking for what our options are. Ask Judy and reach out to any contacts that we have at Yale or at UConn. And are they the only options? Is there anywhere else that we could go for, let's look.
Yeah, because you're looking for a cost-effective. There's that CAWS, which is the Connecticut Association of Wetland Scientists. And those are professional wetland scientists, and they may know of options there. So yeah, there's a couple of different places that I could look to find out what resources might be available at a low cost or no cost to the town to do something like that, to do a review like that.
We should
All right,
probably look.
if that's your wish.
If you need a motion, I'll make it, but if it's just
No, I just need to,
consensus.
I don't
then-
need a motion. I just need to put it on my list of things that that I need to do.
Okay, thank you.
If you find it for free and it's good, and work makes sense, that's a great thing, right? If you can't, well, we tried. All right. Next item then is the other business, permit conditions and to ensure compliance.
Marla Butt speaking. Last meeting, you asked me to come up with some draft language for a condition that was suggested by Daniel Blanchette regarding retaining walls or revetments that are proposed along shorelines. It's on page 45 of the Zoom documents. I have drafted some language that doesn't just include shorelines, but includes any property boundary. Anybody building a structure like that, they should know where their property boundary is. So I'm suggesting that for future reference, that anytime you get an application where someone is proposing a retaining wall or revetment along a property boundary, shoreline or otherwise, that you use this language, which is similar to what Daniel was suggesting, which you would move to approve whatever the application was, the name, the information, on the condition that prior to the initiation of any earth moving work associated with the construction of any retaining walls, revetments within 5 feet of any property boundary line, a land surveyor licensed to practice in Connecticut shall stake out such property boundary, and such staking shall be maintained during construction of the retaining wall revetment, and until such time as the commission confirms in writing that such construction is complete. That's my suggested language for any future applications with retaining walls along within 5 feet of a property boundary.
Charlie over here. Does that have to go
don't need to
into
do a
the new
motion.
zoning permit or new zoning regulations as well?
No, no, this would be, as you get applications, you would keep a copy of this language to be able to use so that you have what the language for a special condition on that permit would be.
Yeah.
Um,
Like a working reference or something, if in the event we've got a pro
Yeah.
forma, a format, it's not a statutory thing or a regulatory thing. It's more of a, what do we do next time? When it comes up, we can pull it up and say, let's use the wording.
Yep.
We just have to have a folder labeling it so we can find it when we need it.
I'll put it in the protocol book that I have at the office.
That's good. Looks good to me. You know, it seems fairly specific, yet it's under, I think it's not too technical. The average person, I think, can understand that if you can do something, if you get a surveyor to tell you where you can and can't make changes. Any commissioner, any other comments? We heard from Mr. Obert. Fran, Diane. Okay.
No, it looks good.
Agree.
Okay. All right, moving on to the next item. It bonding options for by IWC. Some of you from Greenwich, Fairfield, Washington, and Windsor. I reviewed this that you sent out. It was pretty interesting. So maybe you can tell us what you've done here and what you recommend, Marla.
So after working in Hartford, I found that towns that had very expensive properties tended to have more bonding. They tended to be more particular about their bonding because the property values were so high that if anybody screwed up, they wanted to make sure that it could get fixed. So Greenwich and Fairfield, Stanford, all those areas, I used to call those the Gold Coast, because their properties are so expensive. And then Washington was a town, a small town, kind of like Thompson, not a mill town really, but they had a lot of interest in their wetlands regulation. And then Windsor, which is somewhat urbanized, and I looked for towns that had different ways of approaching things. So I looked at a number of them. So what the question was is, what is the form of the bond? Well, there were a lot of them in the Gold Coast area wanted cash, because cash, I guess, is king. Some of them said that you could do a letter of credit, or that the form and type would be in accordance with the town bonding policies. Some of them asked for a public liability insurance. So when you look on the next pages down, I actually excerpted the specific languages that I found on their web pages regarding bonding and insurance. So the question I also had is, who determined what the amount of the bond would be? And sometimes it's estimated as a part of the application. It's additional information requested. So for example, if somebody had a subdivision and then they had erosion and sediment controls, they would be asked to provide a cost estimate for all the different various erosion controls. How much was seeding? How much was silt fencing? How much was riprap channels? How much? So they could know what the cost of a bond should be. And that sometimes that was done by a professional engineer who was paid by the applicant. Or it was calculated, as in Windsor's case, which I frankly didn't like. If you go to page 48, they say that their formula for calculating a wetlands performance bond would be the total amount of the applicable items: $2,500 for a detention basin, $60 per catch basin, and 50 cents per square foot of disturbance within a wetlands watercourse or in the closest 50 feet, either to a wetland or watercourse. That was a kind of interesting way of saying you're not really looking at what the cost of fixing it would be. You're looking at the cost of, it's not really related to the cost of trying to fix a problem. So after figuring out who was gonna determine the amount, which ultimately the commission is the one, but the regs set forth the mechanism for doing it. How and when can those bond funds be used? how does that determined? And it's called, some of them have language that says the agency can call the bond to correct a violation as part of an enforcement action. And frequently it wasn't identified in regulation as to when the bonds could be called. And then the procedures for using those bonds, how do you know how much money is going to come out? How do you actually execute that money, take it and use it? How is that done? Do you hire a separate contractor that goes in onto somebody else's property and do that work? It was never even identified in any of the regs, and it really wasn't clear as to what the procedures for using the bond funds were. So you were looking at doing bonding or questioning about doing bonding. We were talking about perhaps adding it into the regulations. A lot of the towns had the exact same language you currently have within your regulations with no further clarification. So I think that was probably the standard language that was given in DEP's standard regulations. So if you want to pursue bonding, these are some of the things you need to think about. And I can try to, when we get to the regulations revisions, we can look at this section, and this could come up again, and you can kind of have input on that. But right now, I would rather see the majority of the bonding go through the Planning and Zoning Commission, but they don't seem to be handling it very well. They tend to release their monies too quick.
Well, I think if I could add a couple
Okay.
comments, I did look over the P&Z's, I guess, more current version that was recently updated, and it seems the guidelines are pretty specific. We verify that the work's done, it's compliant before the bond is released. So maybe it's not a question of structure; it's more of an execution issue or timing or understanding of the timing. I think when I raised the question, and we discussed this briefly last meeting, my concern was that, we have wetlands activities there. It doesn't seem like there's enough tools for us, right? There's either get a bond, surety, or not. There's not a lot of in between. And it was pointed out by more than one commissioner that, bonds can be expensive, and how does that serve anyone? If someone has a routine matter, they have to get a bond. And I think I did posit the question of, should we require bond on everything? And that was sort of a false posit. It's like, well, probably not. But the question is, when do you do it? And it's usually we find out after the fact that we should have maybe done that or required one, but didn't. If everyone does what they say they're going to do, then we wouldn't need bonds, right? That's the whole purpose behind a bond. It says someone's responsible for doing something. The bond is their guarantee. It's held by usually a surety, a third party. And if the work isn't done or the services aren't performed, then the folks that required the professional services to be done or the work to be done can then call upon the surety to fund the cost of having it remedied or corrected. So I don't know if there's an easy answer to this, but I did appreciate you pulling up all these documents, Marla, because it gave me a better, view of what other people are doing. Maybe we should look at some of their other ones. Passbook stuff is cash surety is what you have when you give up funds. That can be has its own challenges. Those are my thoughts. Any other commissioners or any other comments or observations?
Charlie over here. I think that summarizing these, the work that you've done so far is good, but I'm willing to help you edit it into one more or less cohesive segment for when we get around to revising our regulations.
Yeah, it's Commissioner
Okay.
Chapin. I guess, Marla, did I understand you to say that this is something that planning and zoning is supposed to be doing? And the reason we're looking at it is because they're not doing their job? Because if that's the case, then I'm not for this. I don't like to pick up stuff because somebody else isn't being held accountable for what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, the problem arose because of the gravel mining operations and what would happen at 363 Quantic Town Farm Road. And also how the bond got released on New Road for the mining operation there. That didn't have any environmental problems that I could see, but the one at 363 Quantic Town Farm Road, there was a misunderstanding about what constituted stable ground. And that's probably just an education issue. And I talk about it a little bit in my wetlands agent report, that Cindy and I have had conversations about how, for gravel mining operations, since planning and zoning always has the bond, that she and I should communicate before she recommends that the bond be released, to verify that there aren't any outstanding potential environmental issues that regarding soil erosion and sediment control. And that could have potentially been avoided on this 363 Quantic Town Farm Road site if the bond had not been released. Because now the contractor, Strategic Commercial Realty, technically isn't legally obligated to do anything on that property. It is the property owners, and the property has been part of it has been sold off to the abutting property owner. Where the problem is still occurring on River Junction Estates property. So now I've got to work with all three entities to try to get that site stabilized. It's not, half of it is stabilized, the other half is not. So that was what caused this issue to come up. So I think we can work it out, but it's mostly planning and zoning's responsibility, the way I see it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was hearing you say, and I like the fact that if you can get in to work in conjunction with them, so they understand they can't release something before they have your input into it. That seems like a better path to me than reinventing the wheel.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Okay, well, we've certainly covered the subject. Any other comments? I guess we'll hold it in abeyance until we get to the revisiting the subject at a later date. Okay, next item, reports. Budget and expenditures.
Okay, so this is Commissioner Chapin. We have expended $209.54 in this current month, which is $190 in advertising and $19.54 in office supplies. We have an available budget of $12,177.36 and have used 52.8% of the budget.
Feels like we're on track. Any questions, commissioners? Okay, thank you. Wetlands agent report.
Okay, well, there's no changes in the status of the court appeal on application IWA 15029. That was River Junction Estates, AKA Star Road or Star Trail. And there's been no change in the MS4 annual report or the pre-1990 file destruction. One thing I will make a comment on is I'm working with the Public Works Department and the Selectman's office to see about having somebody else do the annual reports. And instead of me, right now I have two to do, the 2019 and the 2020. And we're looking into maybe having a contractor do the annual report. On inspections and follow-up actions, the complaint 2005, that was the dumping of manure off of Arrowhead and Hathaway Drive. I sent an email today to Richard Benoit, Public Works Director, and requested a barrier and no dumping sign be erected to stop the continued dumping of debris in the swamp on the town's property, and to let me know if there would be a problem in getting that done by April 1st. Complaint 2018, that was the structure that was being built in Jerry Swamp. George, this is one that I sent you a PDF file for sharing. This was one, this is the structure. You can see it's actually built right over the water. And I've drafted a letter of inquiry to be sent to who I believe is the prospective property owner, James Bober. And if, George, if you go down one screen on that, it looks like it's supposed to be some kind of hunting blind. How they're going to gain access to it, I don't know. The complaint came in from a representative from the Wyndham Land Trust, and that picture that you see there shows a flag where that structure is located. Technically, it's not in one of the significant wetlands, which is kind of interesting because I would have thought it would have been. I've asked him if the structure, I said it would appear to be on his property, and requested that he identify by March 1 if he's responsible for the construction. That's a James Bober. And if yes, to cease any further work and provide an explanation as to the function of the structure so that the commission can determine its next course of action. I think it's a hunting blind. That's what it looks like, but I don't know how they're going to gain access to it. They'd need a ladder.
There's the entrance.
to
Yeah,
get
well,
up
that's the
into that
entrance.
thing.
Looks like they haven't finished. There's your entrance here.
Yeah,
The entrance would be here.
it may be finished by now, but apparently they were gaining access through the Wyndham Land Trust property because there was no access otherwise. When you look at that map that shows where the flag is, are you having fun, George?
I love your
that's-
diagrams, George.
That's how
This is
they get
great.
in. That's how they get in. That's their steps. Of course, they need a railing. We'll put a railing in too. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. Go
That's
ahead.
perfect.
Anyway,
So if you scroll down to the
next one.
map
Okay.
that I provided that has the flag,
Let's see.
there is no dry access to Bober's property. So the only way he gained access was traveling through the Wyndham Land Trust property. But that's standing right in water. How he got it in there, I don't know. You see, the Wyndham Land Trust property is located to the south. What's in Mr. Bober's property is in blue. It's outlined in blue.
Huh.
And there's a little piece of high ground right next to where that structure is located. And you have to cross from the trolley track, and you cross the Wyndham Land Trust property to get to that little piece of high ground. And I don't know how they got to it other than going through there. That's unless they floated it up on the water, but couldn't see that.
Well, if it's hunting,
Anyways,
it's going to be
that-
it's supposed to
that
be
will
500
stay-
feet from an occupied structure, unless they have written permission from the landowner. So they barely made it. If that's a 500 foot to an inch measure.
Yeah. Yeah, they probably have it, my guess is, but still, it's technically in the water. So while it might be construed as a non-regulated use potentially, it still could be construed as a regulated activity. And I'm not sure how they plan to use it. Is that something they're going to sleep in overnight? I mean, apparently because it's not big enough to be considered a shed, I'm not sure that it needs a building permit. It's a very strange situation. So we need to find out what its function is and what they plan to do.
Okay.
The next item was Strategic Commercial Realty's permit that they had at 363 Quatictown Farm Road. And George, this is the other file I sent to you. If you recall, I had asked Strategic Commercial Realty to
Hold on.
to
I'm
make
getting it.
modifications to the silt fence and back it up with a hay bale check dam that had guy wires helping to hold it in place. So by January 9th, that's the picture that was taken on January 9th. Those fence modifications were made, and that photo is by the gentleman standing, I guess, in the picture, Bill Steins. The erosion, the ENS control was modified, and if you scroll down to the next picture, there was a storm. I believe it was on the 16th of January. A rainstorm tested these modifications, and I got photographs from Gail Arsenault. And the ENS control did not fail. Now you can see it was overtopping, but it didn't fall over. And George, if you go to the next picture down, apparently the land upon which the control now exists is owned by Scott Latendry. Scott Latendry is the one who has the house next to the pond and owns that barn. And it's amazing amount of water was held back by that structure. Water was almost up to the top of the hay bales. And you can see in the foreground where the silt fence is bulging at the end of the hay bale check dam, right there. Oh, George, I
here.
see your hand, but
It's right here. Yeah.
no.
The
Oh, you
other
want-
end,
Oh,
closer
down
Yeah,
to
here.
it.
Oh,
Yeah.
here. Oh, I'm sorry.
right there. Yeah. So that's what the hay bale check dam was intended to do to help hold that fence in place. So apparently, Scott Latendry owns the land that the hay bale and silt fence sits on. But the portion that remains unstabilized is owned by River Junction Estates. So the left side of the photograph is River Junction Estates property, and the right side of the photograph is Scott Latendry's property. And the fence and the hay bale check dam is on Scott Latendry's property. So there is erosion. You see the hay bales that are on River Junction Estates property. There's erosion there. There's rilling going on there. So I'm going to be working with both property owners and Strategic Commercial Realty in the coming months to get that contributing area stabilized before the silt fence and hay bale check dam is removed. Additionally, this is where I've talked to Cindy Dunn, and we've worked out an understanding about better coordination between our offices before she recommends the release of bonds when posted on gravel mining operations. What I was explaining to her is that that site is not stable. And she said, well, when she went out there was no problem. And there was a haze of green. And I explained to her that in accordance with the erosion and sediment control guidelines, in order to be stable with grass, you have to have 100 plants per square foot, and at least the blades have to be 6 inches high. So that land, that's River Junction Estates property, has a haze of green, but it's not sufficient for it to be considered stabilized. And it's going to continue to rill if their modifications aren't made. So it's going to take a little bit of work. They may have to reseed. Don't know how well that grass is going to come through the winter because it was very small, very young when the ground got frozen. So it might not have survived. So going to have to revisit that in the spring, probably sometime mid-March, be taking a look at it to see how things are going. I only reviewed 4 building permits. Things are seeming to slow down in the building office. And I don't have any miscellaneous things to identify. And I had 1, 2, 3, 4 purchase orders that I have outstanding. And they're all 3 of them are for legal notices and one's for a COVID protective shield. And that's it.
Okay.
That's my report.
Thank you very much for the wetland agent report. Any correspondence?
No, I didn't pick any off. I believe a magazine came in for wildlife, but that was it.
All right. And we signing of Mylars, we have none.
None.
by commissioners. Commissioners, it's 8:49.
This is Charlie Obert. The only point that I will bring up is the same one that I did at this time last month, and that is we need to make sure that we start using the new logo letterhead. At least it's not on the reports that came out at this time.
Great. Yeah, it's a good looking
Marla Beth
logo.
speaking. Charlie, I'm waiting for Tara to come and put them onto my computer. And until somebody comes and gives me them, I don't know why they can't send them electronically, but we just haven't connected.
It came up at the branding meeting last week, and I think the only reason is that they want to make sure that the versions of them that are used are all consistent, because there's been a temptation to spread it out, make it wider, make it taller, and once the ratio goes out of proportion, it doesn't look as favorable. So that's the only thing that I know of. I think that either Leslie Moonshauer, Marie in the First Selectman's office, or Tira, we're going to be touching base with everybody pretty soon. So that's the only thing that I know about that.
Okay. Any other comments by other commissioners? I hear none. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Hearing no opposition, the meeting is adjourned at 8:51. Thank you, everyone, for your participation, and have a good evening.